Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. My name is Zoe Carrasco. I am a UCSF student nurse midwife and a Nourish Village ambassador. I'm humble to be monitoring this beautiful virtual space. Nourish is a grassroots Oakland, San Francisco-based organization who has been organizing monthly webinars, and I'm thrilled to be part of this movement. And I cannot have done this without the help of Bethany Golden, who is a certified nurse midwife and a UCSF PhD student. We both work together amongst with the panelists and our Zoom extraordinaire Jessica as well to put this all together. And I have before we open up the discussion, I have a little small PowerPoint that could help create a little foundation for this beautiful space. Okay. Next slide, please. So before we open the space to our rich conversation with our esteemed panelists, I want to ground us in these beautiful images of an Indigenous midwife partera and a Black ground midwife. I want to acknowledge and celebrate the midwives who came before us and provided a healthy and fruitful root system for other aspiring midwives to flourish. Next slide, please. And a little quick disclosure, in today's discussion, we will be discussing about the Certified Nurse Midwifery track. We hope to provide future webinars to highlight other midwifery options, such as the traditional, certified, and certified licensed midwives. Okay, I think there's a little tech issue. Are folks not able to see the slides? Okay. Oh no.
Okay, give me 1 second.
We'll put them up in just a second. Okay, let's try again. Maybe we'll start with the first slide and then we'll see if that's working. Yeah, are folks able to see the slides now? No. No, okay, give us 1 second.
Okay, we'll try something else. Give me 2 seconds.
All right, it looks like folks are able to see it now. Yay, okay. You know, I feel like a good webinar always has a little Zoom glitch, so it's okay. But if we could move to the second slide, I just want to share that image, which always just like warms my heart. So these are the midwives, just the parteras and the Black grand midwives that we just want to honor in our webinar and always like keep in mind as we move forward in our work. And then if we can move to the next slide, please. And so this is what I was talking about. So for this webinar, we're going to focus on the certified nurse midwife track, and then hopefully in future webinars, we could highlight the traditional midwife track, certified midwife, and certified licensed midwife. as we move forward. And next slide, please. So since our audience are many folks who are curious about midwifery, I would like to offer a brief background on the importance of midwifery. The United States has one of the highest rates of maternal mortality among high-income countries. If we dig deeper, we can acknowledge that the mothers who are dying are Black mothers at the highest rate compared to other populations. The midwifery profession today is over 90% white, meaning that there's only 10% of those midwives are BIPOC identifying folks. And midwives only attend 11% of births in the United States, with 45% of those births being to Black, Latinx, and Indigenous mothers and other clients of color. Next slide, please. So the beauty of midwifery care is that there's evidence that it does reduce cesarean rates. There's less interventions, and it reduces preterm births. There's higher patient and client satisfactory, and much more. And one of the antidote of the maternal health disparities is increasing midwifery care access, but most importantly, diversifying the landscape. The evidence shows midwifery care produces healthier maternal outcomes. With that being said, I want to open the space to our panelists who are part of this movement and are going to share their journey with us. And I would like for everybody to take just a deep breath as we start this. And if Ali, we'll just go alphabet order, and then if Ali, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name is Ali Mitchell. Thank you for having me as one of the panelists. I am a just graduated student midwife. I just graduated from UCSF. I am a registered nurse. I am an international board certified lactation consultant, an IBCLC, and I work at East and West Oakland Health Center, supporting the community here in the East Bay. And I am also a certified birth and postpartum doula.
Hi guys, my name is Kiera, and thank you guys for having me. And I currently am in the process of applying to nursing school for midwifery, and I currently am a perinatal community health worker. I'm also a lactation counselor and a birthing and postpartum doula.
Hi everyone, my name is Maya Combs. I am very happy to be in this space and talk about midwifery with everyone. I just finished my first year at UCSF in the MEPN program. So I'm in that in-between stage of studying for my license exam to be an RN and starting the post-grad education in the midwifery portion of the program. So I'm really excited to be here and share with the space.
Thanks, y'all. I'm super excited too. Since we went alphabetic order the first time, we'll do the opposite this time around. So I would love to learn more about what brought you into midwifery. Maya, do you want to start, please?
Sure, I'll start it off. So for me, my story was very much kind of a follow the breadcrumbs type story to midwifery. I was not a little girl who just thought, ooh, I want to catch babies when I grow up, like that. It didn't start off that way. I kind of stumbled upon it and then fell in love with the whole field. So I saw my first birth pretty young. I was 12. I had a cousin who the family didn't expect to be pregnant until she was getting ready to deliver. And so my mom asked if I wanted to come to the hospital with her. And I was just super excited about that and the whole process and the whole laboring. Her OB really let me get up close and personal. And I just like, I remembered the crowning. I recorded all of it on my mom's phone. Like I was very much into it. And then I kind of just forgot about that memory or that part of my life even happened. I continued to grow up. I come from a pretty old family, so I had a good relationship with like my great aunts and uncles. And when they started to pass, it was kind of like one after the other. So I remember getting to high school and like already been to several funerals and having friends who like had never experienced death at all and kind of realizing, oh, this might be like a unique thing for my experience. And that really, really feeling responsible to kind of be the person in the family to heal the family. Like I really felt like I needed to be the one to do healthcare and like help us, you know, not die from cancer and all the other chronic diseases that Black people typically pass from. So that was kind of my entry into healthcare. And then I got to college and I realized I don't really like science, and the pre-med track wasn't really for me. It was really difficult for me and I wasn't really ready to dive into that. And so I worked with some advisors. I changed my major around. I started off psych and pre-med. I changed to sociology and pre-health. And I just found myself in sociology, such a broad major. I was just constantly like writing about the Black experience in healthcare. I was always writing about us and why we experience health the way we do. And once I found like Black maternal health and reproductive justice and all the stats about how Black women are dying doing very normal, natural things, just here and not just here in America, but more prevalently here, it shook my world. Like I couldn't really wrap my mind around it. And I just continued to kind of research it and study it and just found myself focused on it very heavily. And then fast forward to the last year of college, I had a really unexpected death in the family that kind of shook everything up, and it really halted my ability to kind of figure out what I wanted to do after college. I wasn't thinking about midwifery at all. I was thinking either like social work or public health, something of that nature. I always wanted to work, you know, in communities of color, in the Black community. That was always the focus, but I didn't really know what lane I wanted to take. And so with that unexpected death, I ended up only applying to one post-grad program, and that was through a nonprofit in Washington, D.C. called Community of Hope that funded a family health and birth center. And I worked there for a year as a patient advocate, and just the world of midwifery opened up. I was in this clinic where there was Black MAs, Black medical receptionists, Black NPs, Black midwives. And being from the Bay Area, I live on the peninsula, I'm from Menlo Park, East Palo Alto. I've never seen that before in my life. So that was like the most incredible thing to me. And then like everyone loved their job. Like everyone was so passionate. There was so much authenticity in that space and so much healing. Like they're very much a staple for that community of Northeast DC. So being able to witness that and kind of see Black women take on this struggle that we're in and really champion it and really be passionate about it, and just meet midwives like Ebony and Adrienne Crawford who are just doing amazing things, and just watching them kind of build this community clinic was like, all right, this is it. Like, this is probably what I should be doing. I feel like there's a need. I feel like I fit. I love the people I'm around and how they carry leadership with so much authenticity and just like an ancestral right. Like, I feel like they just kind of walked in their power and really impacted their community. And I loved that. So I tried to stay, just to get involved as much as I can. There was a centering pregnancy group there, so I tried to stay involved with that. That's where I learned how to do belly cast. That's where I learned about that lactation consultant was even a field. There was so much that opened up to me. There's so many lanes in the birth world that I had no idea about. So just having that exposure was everything. I was a trained doula during that year. And then once it ended, I came back to the Bay Area and I was like, all right, time to try to be a midwife. Let me try to figure out how I can do this, start taking prereqs, and just try to stay as involved as I could. I ended up being doing the volunteer breastfeeding educator program at SF General. A friend sent me an email. I followed up on it. It worked out. And that was actually a pretty pivotal moment for me because it introduced me to people who just continued to help me network. I met Ariel that year. She introduced me to Asmara, and who's a midwife who I was able to shadow. Ariel is in the midwifery program now too, and introduced me to Dr. Katie Brown, who was doing abortion research that I got to do with Allie. So it was just all these like breadcrumbs that continued to unfold throughout the process that has really gotten me here today, 1 year in and staying strong, trying to stay in it.
Maya, that's so beautiful. I was like, I had chills as you were describing your story. I think and towards the end of it, the safety net that other midwives and students of color also provided for you. It's such a needed thing to have throughout even as initial stages of the journey. So thank you for sharing that. Kira, you ready? Yeah.
So I did originally go to college to pursue nursing. However, I did change my major to community health and public health because I just have a huge passion for working within my community, working for the underserved, and then also just being an advocate for those who cannot advocate for themselves. So that's what led me to actually randomly, I was doing a lot of reproductive health after graduating. I started working at Berkeley High School, and their health center took care to all of the kids, which is totally different from after that. I started working at a nonprofit organization, Lifelong, in East Oakland at a family practice and as a perinatal community health worker, and I had no idea what I was doing. Like I walked in there blindly, I kid you not. And over time, I had to get adjusted to what was happening around me. I had to learn prenatal, the women's health world. And I got really, really close to my patients and I was able to hear their concerns. I was able to see what was happening. A lot of the things were repetitive and I was just like, I just wasn't feeling it. However, I was very much like, okay, the things that were happening, I wanted to be active the way I knew how. So I started to be a lot more productive in the organization and being like, what can we better do for our patients and have better outcomes? And so from there, I had the opportunity to work with Bethany. She's awesome. So most of our providers, they were family practice midwives. I'm sorry, not midwives. They were providers and they were nurse practitioners. So I never really actually got to meet a midwife until I met Bethany. And then once I actually had the opportunity to work with Bethany, it was like, mind-blowing, life-changing. We hear about midwives. I had never actually met a midwife. I had not actually had the opportunity to work with a midwife. So my view for patient care immediately changed. And if anybody knows me, they would say like, oh, Kiera, you're like the most mellow Black Panther. So once I had the opportunity to work with Bethany, she was so kind. Her approach to patient care just allowed me to see how she worked. She gave me the opportunity to work with her while she was in the exam room with her patients, and immediately my whole persona and how patient and working as a midwife was just like, this is what's up. I like this. And so I actually was like starting to do a lot more research in midwifery. And I was like, we have already known about the disparities that happened. I started noticing like a lot of my patients where I worked was about 80% of our patients were African-American. And I saw a lot of them were young, a lot of them were having C-sections, a lot of them were having preterm births. And I was just like, these are the things that were happening. And I noticed when I was doing research that midwifery for African Americans, like you saw on the slide, is like less than 2%. And I was like, you know what, because I already had a huge passion for women's health, I already had a huge passion at that point for maternal, I was like, you know what, I think this led me right back to nursing from when I actually started in the beginning as an undergraduate student. So I was like, you know, it all fits. And so that's where my journey began, and I'm so excited. I still am in the process of, you know, applications. I'm like, heart is pumping, but I'm actually really excited, and I'm just really, really excited for the future that has come for me, and I'm not going to give up. So it is.
Thank you for sharing. I also want to like brag about Kira because she developed a lactation group at Lifelong, which is really successful. And last but not least, Ali, do you mind sharing your experience or the reason why you started this journey?
Yeah, oh, this is always such a big question. But so basically, I think from when I was pretty young, I knew that it was something that I was passionate about. And I didn't know the word midwifery. Like, for example, I remember my little sister was born when I was 11, and I was just so involved in, like, I was always wanting to be around her and like helping, you know, my stepmom, like helping her when she would nurse her, like getting things for her and all these things. And then when I finished high school, I kind of, you know, I had heard the word doula kind of like being thrown around, and so I kind of looked into that, and I realized that, and that kind of led me down the path to finding out what a certified nurse midwife does. And it just so happened that UCSF was right across the bridge from where I'm from and grew up. And so I decided consciously to pursue midwifery the long way. So I went to nursing school, and I got my bachelor's degree in nursing. And while I was in nursing school, I started volunteering as a doula for Birthways in Berkeley. And it just kind of happened that, and it was crazy. I took on, I'm bilingual, I'm Spanish speaking. My mom's from Peru, my dad's African American and grew up in Richmond. And so I had a client that I reached out to, and I went to her house and I knocked on the door, and I smelled, she was cooking something. And so I smelled something really, really familiar. And, you know, she opened the door, we met for the first time. And then I was like, "Are you Peruvian?" And then she was like, "Yeah, I am." So I was just like, wow, you know, this is really meant to be. And so I supported her through her birth at Alter Bates. That was my first birth that I saw as a doula, and it just felt very meant to be. And so that kind of gave me the drive to keep going even through nursing school, which was pretty tough. I went to nursing school in Idaho, North Idaho. And then while I was in nursing school, I wanted to become an IBCLC. So I did some classes at Portland State, and it was midwifery was always the ultimate goal for me. And so I just along the way tried to do things and like reach out to my community here to really make sure that I had the community support and the resources that I needed to get to where I am right now. But yeah, that, and then I finished nursing school. I worked for a year as an RN, a bedside RN in med surg, and then postpartum, and I did some peds. And then I moved back home and I applied to UCSF, and then I went through the program, and I became an IBCLC earlier this year. But I've been providing breastfeeding support to Spanish speaking and English speaking Black patients here in Oakland. And yeah, I think, and I also am like finishing up my rotations at Alta Bates, which is like also full circle, because that's where I had my first birth as a doula. And so yeah, it's been the journey's been affirming. So yeah.
Thanks, Ali. it's just hearing y'all, I noticed like the pattern of like, I mean, for myself too, like I didn't know what a midwife was until, you know, as an adult. So it's interesting to hear that everybody has that similar experience, that it's something that we learned as we got older, but it also tells you the scarcity of it too. And I feel so grateful that we're all part of this movement, and hopefully like our offsprings are going to be like, you know, they know what a midwife is as when they're like 5 years old, because we're going to be everywhere. So my next question is for Kira. I'm so curious about just learning about your process here at the, I wouldn't say like initial stage, but you're applying for school. And if it's okay for you, like, is it, can you tell me about what have been the first steps that you've taken to start this journey?
Well, because I was already like very much involved in the whole maternal world, with me working at a health center and a family practice, working with prenatals and peds, and then, you know, doing lactation and doing women's groups. So I actually was already kind of full scope in that area with being able to manifest and have that experience. So I already knew patient care, and I already knew postpartum once they had, you know, came back from the delivery room, and I would, you know, talk to them once they delivered, and I would go and do hands-on with breastfeeding. So I would say like when I really was like, okay, I want to know for sure if midwifery is 100% for me, I made the effort to be like, I want to see my first birth. And so I actually applied to a volunteer work at Highland Hospital in Oakland, and in the maternal and labor and delivery department. And so like there, you're supposed to do like a certain amount of clinical hours so that they know that you're dedicated before they actually let you on the floor. So I was doing more so like the back stuff, but then COVID happened. So I didn't actually get to start working at the labor and delivery, but during that process, I came across a doula, and she was very awesome. At that point, I was like, you know what, doulas, what's up? You know what I mean? I was starting to understand and learn, kind of like what Ali was saying, how it all goes around. You know, I was already into lactation. I understood that lactation in African-American people were not breastfeeding as often, you know, and then I found out how great doulas are and how this is something that would be beneficial to African Americans, and the rates probably would be a little bit lower if that wasn't access to them. Unfortunately, you know, that's not the case. And so she was nice enough to allow me to shadow her. And so I was with her at the first time, and, you know, we were there for like a good 18 hours. But I kid you not, you know, when I was there, it was beautiful. You know, the lady was okay with me being there. And I cried. I mean, like, it's like, you don't even know her, but but I like actually teared up a little bit. But it was just also amazing because my persona, I just wanted to make sure that I can handle the whole scope of being a midwife. And so when I was there, I believe she was a resident, but she was an OBGYN. She was awesome to me. She was so nice to me when we're in the labor and delivery. I was like down there with her, like, whoa, like, whoa. And she was like showing me and teaching, and she was like saying words. I didn't know what she was talking about, but it was just awesome. And then she pulled out the placenta and she showed it to me. And I was just like, you know what? Like, that was all I needed to let me know that that's what's up. And so I would say that was my first step. And then after that, I actually went ahead and took doula trainings, and then I went ahead and actually got certified as a birthing and postpartum doula. And I've been doing it on my own periodically, you know, because I'm still working and trying to apply for schools. But I would say definitely that was my first step.
How's it been with the academia part of application, like your prereqs and stuff? Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, so because I was already kind of taking classes when I was in undergrad, I already had a good amount of actually had all of them, but because I haven't been in school for a really long time, I did have to start taking a couple of them over. So while I was in working full time, I think I took like either 1 or 2 courses. So it took me about a year and a half to get through it up to this point to actually kind of get all of the necessary courses to add up to the most recent so that I can start applying. But that's how it was. So I was actually working and taking classes at the same time. I wasn't a full-time student. I was taking either like less than 12 units, but and since then, that's what I did. And I finished like last quarter.
Thank you. And you're applying as we speak, right? Those applications are due soon.
Yeah, I'm applying right now.
Sending you, so like just great, good vibes. You're gonna get it for sure. And Maya, you just finished the master entry program at UCSF. Congratulations. Can you tell me about your experience of the first year where, or you could explain it about what happens that first year and what does that mean? And then you could just share whatever you've encountered, good or bad.
Yes, so I just finished the first year, well, the MEP-in year of the Midwifery MP program at UCSF. So the first year is basically preparing you to take the NCLEX and be an RN. You need to be an RN before you can do the NP and master's portion at UCSF. So it's an accelerated RN program, essentially. You do an RN's education in about 11 months. It is extremely intense. It's very much accelerated. And doing it during COVID, I think had its special challenges. If I could describe it in like 3 words, it's challenging, exciting, nerve-wracking, all at the same time. It's like running on a ridiculous amount of momentum the entire time. It's really exciting because you're starting something wonderful. You're starting the first steps of what you hope to be a beautiful lifelong journey. But it's tricky too, because my goal is to catch babies, not to necessarily, be a bedside nurse on like a adult care unit, which I had to, learn to do for 6 months in the middle of COVID. So it definitely had its challenges that I didn't necessarily foresee. I think I was so excited to get in that was what I was waiting for. It's like, oh, I just want to get in. And then once you're in, it's like, oh shit, like now I got to be a nurse. Like now I need to learn all these skills. So it was challenging. Zoom fatigue is definitely real. But there were a lot of beautiful moments there too. I think the academic part for me was very challenging just because of the pace. And like I said before, science isn't necessarily my strongest suit. So there was that part of it that was challenging, but being like the clinical part was in the moment was also really challenging, but now that I look back, like it definitely made the experience, being able to be on the floor with patients, and particularly at a time where they may not be getting visitors or seeing their family members. So you are kind of, not only are you this nursing student learning how to do these skills, but you might be this person's only connection, like to someone outside of their actual nurse. So it was definitely a learning experience for me. It definitely showed me that there's so much more to not only midwifery, but nursing and caring for people than like the skills. Like there's definitely you need to do it from your soul, I think, to be a good nurse, and just learning that as like, not on the spot, but as as every week went by, I think it's definitely changing parts of who I am as a person, because it kind of needs to in order for me to be the midwife I want to be. So that was something that I didn't necessarily expect from the first year, but definitely I feel like I had to kind of go through those motions to make it through and feel like I'm on my way to doing what I want to do for a lifetime. So yeah, it's intense, it's exciting, it's difficult, it's stressful. But I think in the end, I wouldn't change anything. I mean, there were things I would change, but I'm glad that I've made it through. I think it really forced me to connect with my classmates who have been there with me and have experienced this like super unique time right there by my side. So that's been necessary. I think I'm really fortunate to have really great mentors and know people who are a year ahead of me to kind of lean on or ask questions to. I think that's really truly important, mentorship and like establishing a community, especially as a Black woman doing this midwifery program in this field where that's kind of rare. So the fact that I actually know people like Ariel and Allie and Asmara and who I can feel like I could lean on if I absolutely need to, even if it's just like, I just need to know someone who's a midwife who's made it, who's happy. Right now, that's all I need. Can you be that for me? And of course they could if needed. So I think establishing a community a little bit beforehand and throughout the process was really helpful for me for this year. Even if it wasn't like we're having monthly meetings or calls, just the fact that I know that they were there and that they've made it through meant a lot for me throughout the year.
Yeah, I think that's so crucial to have. Like, I think, just connecting it back with like Nourish and how we want to cultivate this village and community, like just the community aspect of all is so necessary for anybody to, reach their goal in whatever capacity that is, right? Would you mind saying a little bit more about the things that you would have changed? I'm really curious about that.
I think for me, just like on a personal development part, I think I could do better at utilizing my resources. I think when I'm in a very stressed out situation, I kind of feel like I need to go through it on my own and then like reach out after I'm done, and it could be better. So I think things that I would have changed just comes from me just communicating more about what I needed and when I needed it. I think I had some expectations from the program just regarding like checking in on a mental health level, just because we were seeing, the insides of the healthcare system in its most stressful moments. And that was like hard to experience, see, and kind of carry as a student, because you still need to have this gusto to make it through. So I think if I could have communicated what I needed sooner to those who maybe could have made it a better impact in terms of like the institution itself, the program itself. And I think UCSF does the best that it can with like surveys and like trying to encourage people to give feedback. But it's another thing to actually do the survey and give the feedback. So I think for me, like just communicating more what I think could have been helpful, I think would have kind of made my experience a little bit different in a positive way. And just not feeling like I have to carry the challenges on my own to have felt this, whatever you're supposed to feel once you experience something difficult, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I think you express that this program is intense, and then on top of that, and a pandemic on top of that, like there's so many layers that you've shared that it has definitely was a challenging moment and experience for you. I'm glad to hear that you were able to lean on to folks that you trusted, and it also just highlights the advocacy that we hope that we could galvanize to as we proceed in our journey to like always say what we need and want. And I heard like it's when you were saying that the patients had nobody else, but you were there as their student nurse, but you were also there as their doula almost. I think that's such a beautiful thing. Like you were still able to give a little bit of that midwifery heart, doula heart in your spaces. Thank you for sharing that. This is a question for Ali and Maya, and now that Kira is on her way and applying, like, are there any suggestion or any tips or anything that you feel that somebody would have told you as you were right before you were applying? this is a good space that hopefully we, like all three of y'all, could interact.
I think touching on what Maya shared about, like on a personal level, like tapping into your community and your resources, and like knowing when to, is like key, I think, especially for us as BIPOC people. I found that for me, it has been super challenging. COVID has been extremely challenging in becoming, you know, going through this program and learning to become a CNM, because essentially a lot of us had to grieve what we thought this journey would be. And so it was really hard for me to wrap my mind around learning how to become a midwife online. And I think for a long time I was, you know, UCSF, this program was my dream. And so, you know, and I'm also so close to my cohort mates. And so that was really, well, one, you know, midwifery is community based. And so when you take out the community part, then like what, you know, for me, it was like, what's left? It's been really challenging. It was a really challenging experience, and I'm still like trying to like deal with that part of it. Sorry to be emotional, but I think my biggest advice for you, Kira, is, and like before I give you this advice, I also want to say that I think that one thing that I hope changes for the future and for the people that are attending and like are wanting to become a midwife is that as people of color, especially women identifying people of color, I don't think it's fair when other people ask us what we need. I think it's pretty evident the things that we need and the support that we need. You know, I wish that it could just be given to us, especially in institutions like UCSF, where, you know, you're doing these surveys and you're asking us, and, you know, you're trying to find out about our experiences, and like, you know, it's the feedback that we're giving you, like what is all the feedback, like how are you showing up for us, you know? But I just want to say that I wouldn't have been able to make it through without my community, without my support, without people like Zoe. Like, you know, we met like interchanging through the Solars project, but like, you know, she's reached out to me a few times. Maya, Dr. Katie Brown, Dr. Monica McLemore, my faculty, the midwifery faculty, and I've had the, you know, the opportunity to have all these intersections of like support, like at work, at WIC, and I've had amazing preceptors in the hospital, which sounds like you also you've had those experiences too, Kira. And I just want you to know that like when you're in it and it gets really hard, because it does get really hard, just don't ever feel like you're alone. Like, we're all here for you. This is what midwifery is. It's a community. And so, yeah, just remember to tap into us.
I'll definitely echo that. The power of community, it's like, it's hard to express in words, because it's you can feel the love when it's there. And I feel like with us, with communities of color, especially in this field, like the love is really, really there. Like I've never felt more supported than from the people who are also doing what I hope to do and kind of in this journey, because we see the need. Like, we need us, and we can do it as long as we know that we're supported and we have each other's back. So definitely lean into your community. I think for me, I wish that I would have known about like organizations like Nourish and like Bay Area doulas and you know, Sister Web and all these organizations, because they're here. I just didn't know about them. So I think even to those who are listening and to everyone who's applying, like find your community that's near you and reach out to them, because they probably don't know you're there, just like you don't know they're there. And once we both know, then it's like we have a bond and we can kind of establish a relationship and have a connection. And then I would also say, just if you haven't already found a self-care routine, find that. It's so important. You have to fill your own cup before you can go out and do this work, because you will be tried and tested. And so it's better to withstand the battle when you're coming from a full place. And I thought I had like a self-care routine. I thought I was okay. And then I realized I wasn't really doing that great. So establish that, I think, as soon as you can. So when you do get to those challenging moments, you kind of have a backup plan. You kind of know what to do to make yourself feel good and who to call if you need to lean on someone. The application process for me was very stressful. I felt like I needed to prove my whole self-worth in this application, which can be a lot, because there's so many reasons why we do this work, and there's so many experiences and little things that have drawn us to that, and to put that on a paper in 200 or 500 words is daunting. So take your time. I mean, there are deadlines, but take your time with it, and just remember the why you're doing this. It's not on accident that you found this, right? And so continue to honor that and to really, press into that, because you're here for a reason. So just remember that, love on yourself, develop some self-care tips if you haven't, and really lean on your community, because we're here.
It's so beautiful. Needs like a good deep breath, that one. Thank you for sharing. Also the audience, big heart. So Ali, congratulations, you did it, you graduated. So proud of you. It's so, for me, it's so great to see like the previous cohort graduating. I'm like, oh my God, that's gonna be me next year. I'm just curious to hear about like your next steps. What do you hope now that you're done with school?
Yeah, I think, well, next steps, like logistically speaking, are to study and take the boards, the licensing board. So it's 2 exams for CNM and WHMP that I'll be taking. And then, again, touching on some things that Maya brought up, some self-care for me, because I've been in school for, I'm sure all of us have been in school for a long time. And so I am planning to take a few months of respite, especially after COVID too. And then I'm gonna kind of see where I'd like to work. I'm open to home birth. I'm open to birth center. I'm open to hospital. And I really am trying to be mindful about creating a midwifery practice for myself that ties in all of my experience as a lactation consultant, because there's not a lot of that. And so, yeah, those are my next steps. I also would love to be a mentor and maybe eventually a preceptor, especially for student midwives of color. It's really important to me.
Thank you. I'm sure you'll do great at any setting. I could just see you just flourishing.
Yeah.
We have, I believe, 10 minutes left. I want to make sure that I have room for questions. Is there, in one word, how do y'all describe your experience through this so far?
Transformative.
It's 2 words, but I always think of this time as 3 words, hard heart work.
Do you have any? Oh, Kiera, go ahead.
I mean, I haven't actually experienced being in the program yet, so I'm extremely scared and excited because I know it's not going to be a piece of cake. But as far as like what I've experienced so far, I would just say it's been the word I always use is beautiful.
So we'll have some space. Thank you for that. We'll have some space for questions. So if folks from the audience would like to type in their questions, hopefully we'll be able to answer some of them. All right. So somebody asked, how long is the program?
So I guess we could both answer it, Maya. So my experience, because I came in into the program as a master's applicant, which means that I got my bachelor's degree in nursing. So it was 2 years for me.
And then since I didn't come in with a nursing background, I did the full MEPN program. So I have a BA in sociology, but no nursing education. So my program will be 3 years. The first year is the accelerated nursing part of it, which is a year. And then you ideally pass the NCLEX, become an RN, and then the NP CNM portion is 2 years, which is what Allie just finished.
Great. Jessica, do you mind pulling the PowerPoint? I want to show folks the resources that I have listed as people are, I'm sorry, did I say Jessica? As people are thinking of questions. And then there's a person, Rosie Berg asked, does the program prepare you for home birth, hospital birth, or both?
So the program is geared for a degree as a certified nurse midwife, which is a hospital provider. Unfortunately, we have like a small like lecture portion of home birth like information, including intermittent auscultation, which is how home birth midwives assess and track babies' heart rates when they're in the home birth, like in the home setting. But we don't have any home birth rotations or birth center rotations. We just rotate through the hospital.
And I just want to let folks, these are a few resources that I was able to gather. I really like the BIPOC Aspiring Midwives website. They have a resource page dedicated to a list long of resources for folks, from like readings, podcasts, everything. So I think that's a good place to start. And then we have another question from Almatria Turner. How much are most programs, and are any BIPOC scholarships available?
That's an excellent question, and I should know so much more about the financial part of it than I feel like I do. The first year of the MEPN was expensive. I want to say, in my heart of hearts, I feel like it was $16,000 a quarter. They're 4 quarters, so that's like $65,000 a year. And then I think the graduate years are $60,000 each, maybe. And financial aid is available. I think UCSF tries to send out scholarships every month once you're in. If you're not in, I would definitely look for scholarships. That part is kind of difficult. So I would just say to try your best. I wish I had some on the top of my head that I could just resource, but that was really tough for me personally. So I ended up taking up a bunch of loans, but there are scholarships out there. There is one called National Health Service Corps. I think that's a resource for folks to check out. But yeah, that's an excellent question that I wish I had better resources for. Sorry.
ACNM also offers scholarships. That's the American College of Nurse Midwives. Sort of like certifying body. And so, yeah, if you go onto their website, they offer scholarships. And I think there's one specifically for BIPOC students.
Yeah, and I just want to add, and I think this is something that I learned that I share with other aspiring midwives is like, apply for scholarships before the program. Like if you get in, start applying, because when you're in the moment in the program, there's no time for that. And the BIPOC Aspiring Midwife website has a great list of scholarships that you all could start looking at. But yeah, I think that's crucial to start before the program begins. And I just want to say thank you to Maya, Ali, Kira for sharing your experiences with us. It was such a touching moment. And Nourish, please donate if possible. We always welcome donations. There's a one way that you could donate. It's just one time, and then there's also a monthly $10 donation. And if somebody agrees to that, they are able to feed one Black postpartum person for their whole postpartum period, which is 6 weeks. So please consider. And thank you everybody, and thanks for our audience for being patient with us as we were navigating our Zoom hiccups. All right, thank you, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.